One of the most important roles that we play as real estate agents is to help people set their priorities, check in with their priorities to see if they're changing, and then really hold fast to it when they're going through a home search. It is something that is so important. And it is where, when we were talking amongst ourselves, we feel like people get tripped up a lot by thinking about specific things like the priority is a fireplace or the priority is a lot of windows or something. And those are specific attributes of a home. But we are here today to talk about how we work with folks to kind of really drill down what's important, given the limitations we all have generally from budget and everything else. So I am Megan Brenwhite. I am the head of the Upstate Curious team. I'm an associate real estate broker. Our team is housed at Keller Williams Realty Hudson Valley North, based in Kingston, but we cover 8 counties. Basically anywhere somebody would want a second home from New York City. That is a large part of our the buyers and sellers we work with are kind of that weekend home audience, although that has also morphed into more half and half, or even people moving full time. That is Winston with his friend Monica Schwarberg, who is the senior buyer's agent on our team. And I'm in Kerhonkson in Ulster County. Monica.
I'm Newburgh, which is in Orange County, right across from Beacon. So a lot of people are super
okay.
with Beacon.
Does anybody call Orange County in New York the OC?
I think that I've heard that in the past. Definitely not more recently.
Okay.
Younger kids definitely did.
I literally have been meaning to ask you that question for years.
3.5 years. Yeah.
Pretty much. So, and I see we have Hillary on our team. Hillary, you want to wave? Hillary has a home in Roxbury and lives in Stamford. So she's sort of Delaware, Schoharie County, the Wild West. Jessica Maloney, I see her down there, who's our Narrowsburg native, Sullivan County, the River Towns Plus, and Pennsylvania. Excuse me, I forgot all about the Poconos right across the river, land of cheap taxes and fine, undiscovered, cool homes with character. Billy Golan from the Paltz, who has been there since, studying philosophy, as you do before real estate. I see Chelsea here. She doesn't have her camera on, which is totally a-okay. It's 8 o'clock at night. And Chelsea is one of our listing agents, who's actually also weirdly in Kerhonkson, like me. So we came to this topic, which is, like I said, it's a little bit more of an not esoteric, but like up Billy's alley, like a little more philosophical. Yeah. It is. It's like, because we understand that having a home, well, especially when it's a second home, when it's a second home, it's not the same kind of decision-making process. And even if it's going to be your first home and you're moving here from out of the city, which is, again, like a smaller percentage of our buyer pool are buying homes to live here full time, but they're often moving from either New York City or LA or Nashville or bigger places. And the idea is that it almost always comes with some kind of lifestyle change from where they were, I would say. And so it's not the normal thing. Like when I lived in Brooklyn, if I wanted to buy a condo, it was like I knew this neighborhood or that neighborhood, and I would look at the subways and my commute to work, and I knew which restaurants I liked. And I could say like, oh, an 850 square foot condo is worth about this much in that neighborhood. This is more or less expensive. This is not that, because for a bunch of reasons. And what we realize is that as people have been listening to news headlines that say that the market is slower and that the, prices are going down, they're not, they're increasing at a slower rate, and there are way fewer homes on the market. We're seeing more and more clients actually lose deals because they're not being as competitive with multiple offer situations, or they sort of want to negotiate a bit more, or whatever it is, and when somebody puts in an offer that is a good offer with that is completely 100% financially comfortable for them for that house, that like they can lose that offer all day long, and we are going to say amazing, Great. That house was not meant for you. Somebody with more money got the house. That's great. That happens. If somebody loses an offer because they're like, in this market for a house that has a pool that's not a gunite pool, I shouldn't pay this much. That is where we start to see some weird stuff happening. So we were trying to think about how we talk with clients about it. So we talked about 3 pillars. Monica, you want to say what they are and describe?
Yeah. So the 3 main things that kind of compose everyone's search really come down to the house itself, which includes obviously the style, the size, among other factors, the condition. And then the second pillar is location, which isn't necessarily just a specific town, but it could be this far from a train station or this far driving to the city or whatever, point that you're trying to necessarily be within a distance of. And then also kind of, I think we've had a little conversation about setting of house and does that really fall in location or does that really fall in the
house
home pillar? And I think it probably falls more in the home pillar. And then the last one is budget, which for some people there's flexibility with that one and with other people there's not, and that's okay. Everybody's in a different situation. But the main thing to think about when you're starting to look at your home search, whether you're thinking about it for the future, you're in it right now, and you're kind of sitting there wondering, like, why am I not seeing what I want? Why am I not finding what I want? I think that it's important to go back and look at those 3 pillars and to really sit with yourself, which is where that existential piece comes in, and dig deep and figure out, like, okay, what really is important? Is the style of home more important to me than the location of the home? Or is my budget more flexible for me to be able to get that style of home, right? So the best thing to do is figure out which one of those you are the least flexible on, like which one of those 3 is the most important. And that's kind of the starting point, and it might be like the price is the most important for other people. It might be, well, this style of home is the most important because I'm not going to buy something if it's not that style, right? So I think that there's a lot of, again, like sitting with yourself and trying to figure out these things. And I know that one thing that most people don't think about when they're beginning their home search or in it even is your life and your lifestyle and how that plays in.
Funnily enough.
Like how does that play in? Like where does that fall in the category of like importance, right? Is the house the most important, or is what your life is going to look like with your house, especially for our conversation, moving from a city potentially to upstate and the things that you kind of want to get out of that?
I think that's like, and this is, so there's a whole nother session we could do here on helping multiple stakeholder folks set priorities, because we often see, again, like if it's a couple, for example, or it's somebody buying, with their parents' money, or like as an investment, there's even friends buying together. This is where it like becomes so clear how important it is to be so clear and honestly, like honest about your priorities. Literally, just like you have to be honest about it, because if you aren't, like if you're not honest with yourself first, and this is the existential part, like you can't articulate it to us, we can't help you find something. And it won't even be like, that isn't even what'll happen, is that you'll see things and they're just going to keep feeling wrong and you won't know why. And it's because, yeah, and we won't know why.
So we can't help.
That's right. So, and I think that part of it is like, one of the things we were talking about is, so I think that the very first step of this is actually to be very clear on your goals for this purchase. So like, even before you're setting any priorities, it's like, are you buying a home upstate? Like 80%, I mean, it's almost like setting your goals in priority order too. It's like, are you buying a home upstate 80% because you want to start to build equity? You can't afford to buy a place in the city. You want to have a little Airbnb income. That's one thing. Are you buying a home upstate because you have a big extended family, or you like love hosting friends? Those are like those are two different things that could lead you in two very different directions. So I think starting from that, and that's what we try and tease this out of everybody in the questionnaire that we use and then in the consults, but is really like, why are you buying a home upstate? Why are you buying a home upstate now? Those questions are really intended to get at the goal, and I think that we hear a lot of the same things, and that's also fine and normal, that people are like, well, I want to be able to get out of the city. I want to earn a little bit of Airbnb income. I want to get on the property ladder. I want to be able to host friends occasionally. So it's like all of these things, but this is an example of like, if your priority is to make income with that home, then if that is the priority, literally, like, we can do, like, there could be cost analysis, and we're going to be looking at towns that don't have short-term rental restrictions. Like, we're going to 100% restrict ourselves to that. We're going to be looking at, like, can you get a bigger Airbnb? Or they're like, like, there's all different kind of things that would go into that. So I think being really clear about like the kind of meta goal in a way. And then once you have that, then you can go back down to like, okay, let's say our goal is not income. We just want to use it for friends and family. This is the kind of stuff that we like.
Your goal is that you don't want to keep spending money on Airbnbs when you come upstate, right? That's a good goal. If you're coming up a couple weekends a month and, booking another Airbnb, even just having a place to go to, like, that's a good goal.
I mean, honestly, even if you come up not even that much, you could have, you might not want to be, and you might want to like have, like, be able to leave your toothbrush there and like, and really kind of settle into the community here or wherever you would land. So the thing that, like, I think what happens, and this is normal also, is that people immediately get to the specifics of the home. That like is very quickly like, I want a fireplace, I want wide plank floors, I want or I want this many bedrooms, I want this many bathrooms. And it's like, there are going to be compromises at every budget, period. Right? Like, cause there's like literally like almost always literally at every budget that we've seen, we work with people who are looking for like 250,000, which is real tough in this market, to like 2.5 million. There are always compromises. Like, what you're buying is going to have like a kitchen you don't like. It's going to have a view that might be a little bit suboptimal, has one too many bedrooms. It has one too few bedroom. It's a compromise. So thinking about those compromises in advance is really important. Talking about it with another stakeholder is also important. So if you're a couple, then being like if you say you want a pool, like, is that literally a deal breaker? If it is, then do not look at any houses with pools. If your goal is to spend, if your budget, like Monica said, that might be the fixed thing, is not, you can't spend over $600,000 and you want a pool, that's going to really limit where you look. And that's fine. That's just like facts though. You can't be like, I want $600,000 and for it to be in Beacon and a pool and it to be in good condition. Like, maybe if it's like a falling down, like hovel on a quarter of an acre in Beacon with a broken pool, maybe you can
above ground.
Yeah, above ground, a broken above ground pool, you're good. But honestly, that's even I like that you said above ground, because even like some people, like almost nobody that we work with will consider above ground pools. And it's like, what, you could have an above ground pool for a little while you wait to get another pool put in. It's not horrible. Monica's like, ew. Monica has an in-ground pool.
But that's just luck. Yeah, I think that, with what you're saying, and for everyone, like, to be able to get all of those things, the first thing that we would do is to see, like, does that even exist, right? And most of the people on our team, we like to pair our clients up with agents in the areas, at least as close to the area that people are looking at. A lot of our clients are pretty flexible on location, which is awesome. We like to say that everyone's location agnostic. But the agents and any agent that you work with should be an expert, right, in the area that you're working in. So we have a sense of the market. We know what's realistic and what's not before you even, tell us, or we look. But we'll be able to, pull data and show you like, hey, that house has not existed in this area with those parameters in the last 5 years, right? So like, yeah, there's a chance that one might pop up. It might be a needle in the haystack, but are you willing to wait that out? Or are you willing to compromise on one of those things that you talked about, right? Because maybe we can get you the move-in ready house that has the pool and all of the things that you want, just not in Beacon. So then it's like, oh, great, you're compromising on the location. Or maybe we'll be able to find you all of those things, but it won't be move-in ready. Right. So it's like, where do you have that flexibility? And I think, Megan and I were talking earlier about, again, with the features of the house, might even be secondary to the feeling of the house, or the feeling, again, back to that lifestyle kind of point.
Well, and I think that there's something to be, so one of the things I think that we get asked about, or is most frequently requested, is character. And this is actually how I got to this idea of like, how do you feel in a house? Because I was like, what is it? Like, what is it that we all like about character? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? And I really thought about it for myself. And I was like, when I'm in a home that has character, I feel history, actually, generally. I feel like a connection to other people before me, like in a very subconscious way, but there's something about it that's like, the edges are a little rougher. Like, so even if it's a brand new house with character, generally that means you tend to see like things that are a little bit more handmade, and like, it's different. I mean, and again, like, this is another thing where the words are often not your friend. So this is what's in my mind for character. Like, I think of older homes, I think of like a log home, I think of like just even like the beams in my home here, or my weird stone fireplace, which is right next to me. When you're saying the word character, you might think of like a really funky modern home. And that's where like it like really helps to like keep asking the question, like, what do you mean by character? What do you mean by move-in ready? Like, because literally that could have two different meanings for some people. Some people like don't want to pick up a paintbrush, period, done. And someone else is like, well, I could just change the kitchen, and I think it's important. What else we were talking about is there's a couple of things. One is like, what are the things that you can change later? Like, you could add a pool later. You can't change the location. You can't change this. I mean, you could just move, but like, not with that specific home. You can't change the setting of the home that easily. That can be pretty expensive. Like, landscaping is pricey. So if you look at a home and you're like, oh, there's like a really
Well, you
not
can't
so cute neighboring house.
Mature landscaping either. Like, that's not something you can just create immediately, right? So there are things where even if you tried, you really can't recreate it.
Well, right. I remember when they put in our landscaping here, and we put in a bunch of stuff, and they're like, it's really going to look good in 5 years. And I was like, I could be dead in 5 years. Like, I didn't understand, I didn't understand the timelines for the stuff. So that's one of those things. Like, if you don't have an extra bedroom, like if you really want an extra bedroom, but like this a place that's otherwise great doesn't have it, and you can live without it for a couple of years, and there looks like a way to add it, great. Like adding a fireplace, or particularly adding a wood stove everywhere, which is what you should add anyway. That's so easy. And I know so many people who limit their searches to places with fireplaces already. That's one of the easiest things to add.
Next to central air or mini splits, which is another thing that people
Yes.
prioritize. That is just such an easy upgrade.
Well, and I think it's important to think about also, like, so maybe when we're talking about priorities, like, what's important now? What can we live without but know we want to have in the next 3 or 5 years? So like, if you have a home that's entirely made with stone walls, which there actually are some here, those are ones where the mini splits and the air conditioning is a little bit trickier. It's pretty damn rare though, you know what I mean? But that's where, like, knowing that priority is like, you know what, we really love central air. We can live without it for a couple of summers. It's mostly cool up here, but like, we're going to want to add it someday. So great. That just opened up a million more houses. Same thing with like a pool or whatever, or like a bunch of things that a lot of people ask for. And then I think the other thing is really, I don't know how to put this exactly, but like, there are unrealistic like Instagram, so terrible. Sorry. But there are, sometimes there are like there's like, for some people, not everybody, there's like some pressure to have their home be like Instagram friendly and have it look a certain way. And if you're going to be renting it out, you will make more money if that's true, facts. But it's like, again, like there are so many ways to make so many houses look cute. So many ways. Like you cannot imagine what just paint and furniture will do. And Monica, that's true with your place, wouldn't you say? Like yours was kind of cute before, but now it's like super cute, I think.
Yeah, my house is a very basic ranch house that the previous people renovated with all Home Depot finishes, not things that, I would have chosen, or most of the clients that we work with off the bat would have chosen. But I had to prioritize, right? And for me, in my experience, and I just bought a house a few months ago, my priority was, of course, location, because of the way that I work and the fact that I grew up around here, and budget, right? So I was renting. And so the financial part for me was, okay, I want to spend less on my mortgage than I was on my like overly expensive rent. So I compromised on getting that like super stylish house that, of course, I dream of, and I will create here. And then I also bought my house on a slightly busier road, because I was able to get all of those other things that were really priorities to me in this house by doing that.
Well, and I think it's actually a really, I mean, do you mind if we share how much your house was?
No.
Okay, I can't remember. It was like 4.
380.
Okay, so Monica's house was 380. You bought it like before the market started getting slower.
Correct. Yeah. I like put the offer in the beginning of the year, like January. It was still busy.
So that was like, I mean, it wasn't even just still busy. January was bonkers. Like that was like, I mean, that was like everybody who was, I don't know, they all rested up over the holidays and came back. Like we had, I think 26 accepted offers as a team or 26 deals that month. So it was crazy. So Monica for 380 got a totally cute house in pretty damn good condition. Like maybe you don't love everything they did for renovating, but
live without the carpet in the dining room,
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you would maybe want to change, but an eat-in kitchen, 3 bedrooms, you count that as 2, 3 bedrooms,
1 bathroom,
and an in-ground pool and a super cute garden and a cute carport and like right where she wanted to be. And you are 100% right, Monica, that is a house that like, I feel like almost all of our clients would have been like, we don't even want to see it. Don't want to see it.
Yeah.
And it's
what people would all call cookie cutter, right? Like it's a cookie cutter house. It's basic.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that like your house is an interesting one because I wouldn't say it's exactly cookie cutter. They maybe use some like finishes that are like less exciting, but the house itself is kind of like a cute little ranchy. Like when you drive up to it, I think it's really sweet. So I think that like we were talking about how like when I bought this house that I'm in right now, like all we cared about was like, I mean, I just wanted like a cool looking house basically, and I really had never been to Kerhonkson and I was not a real estate agent at the time. And the real estate agent showed me this and I was like, this is awesome. I wanted to be in nature. I wanted a creek. I wanted to be around the, forests and stuff. And this was $250,000, which was our budget. This just, I mean, and that like, yes, everybody should want to go back in time and whatever. We could all buy something. I could also go back in time and buy things in 2008 in New York City and be like a billionaire, or even go to like the 70s and the 60s. And then I really would have made a lot of money, but like you're living in the time that you're living in now. So, that's just reality. And I think there's still a lot of appreciation that's going to happen in this area. So, I mean, the way that we help people prioritize is a couple of things. One is through our questionnaire. Oh, and I'm gonna send this to you guys. This is the questionnaire. This is for if you want to work with one of the buyer's agents on the team. I just put it in the chat. If you want to just fill out the questionnaire and not hit submit, just to like get your thoughts together, great. If you want to hit submit and then be like, hey, I'm not ready to look for anything yet, also fine. But it's just like we tried to design it. We're updating it to really help people think things through. The next thing is through a buyer consultation. But again, this could just be you like journaling, talking, you know, if you're buying with somebody else, talking to each other, really asking those questions like, okay, we want to have 3 bedrooms, but really how often are we going to have enough, you know, those extra guests?
I mean, I think one thing that we didn't say that is probably obvious to a lot of people, but when you're talking about these priorities, it's important to ask yourself why. Like, why are these things important to you? Is that location important to you because your friend told you that that's a cool town? What is it about that that excites you, right? Is it, well, I got really excited because I love that there's an art museum in Beacon and a coffee shop and it's walkable, right? Because maybe those are the priorities. And then you have other places that we can suggest and you can explore that will give you all of those same things. So breaking it down a little, right?
You know, and actually, I'm glad you said that too, because I have somewhere on my list of my priorities when we bought this house. And it was like, it also, and I think I know I've mentioned this to Monica before, but like my priorities were not, I was looking for weird things based on how I lived in Brooklyn, based on the fact that I didn't drive ever, you know, and I was like, oh, like, why would you drive? You have to be walkable to a coffee shop. You know, so that was one of my priorities. I had to be near a train. I had to be all these things. And I ended up instead like in the middle of the woods, I don't know, 30 minutes to a train station. And I'm so happy. So the other weird thing is that it's hard to set, it's actually hard to understand what your priorities will be when you are here. Even when you spent, like we had spent so much time here in like different houses and stuff. I mean, that helped for sure. But like we had spent, it's so different when you're actually like buying a place, I think, because you're like really settling in. You're like, okay, I need to get that car. I need to decide if I have to keep my apartment in Brooklyn, whatever. I think that's pretty important. And the people who say, I would say that a red flag for us as agents. So if any of you who are here, if anybody who's here wrote this in their questionnaire, do not worry. We don't like blackball anyone, but I would say a red flag for me is when people say, we're just looking, we'll move ahead if we find something perfect. I'm immediately like, this train is never getting to the station. Like that's like, it's just like, sometimes it does. Sometimes people, you know, sometimes people find things, but like that mentality somehow, I think what Monica said is that what you want, what you think is perfect may actually not exist at your price point or in the location, may not exist at all. Maybe you want to like, you love Rhinebeck. It's your jam and you want to own an Airbnb there more than anything on earth. And that's what you're going to do. And then you find out they don't allow Airbnbs in Rhinebeck.
Unless you live in the house and you're renting out a room.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's the thing. So like, it may not even be related to budget. It may be like, or you have a lot of people come to us and they say, you know, I just want some land and I want to put like 7 mini houses on it. It's like, that is such an awesome idea that does not exist in zoning almost anywhere as a possibility. It just doesn't. So it's like, you gotta like regroup, but then if getting back to the idea of like, why do you want to do it? It's like, oh, you want to earn some money. Great. You want to earn some money. There are other ways to earn money than to have the mini houses, you know? So I think that is, that's really important. I think that there's all of this like initial, like kind of soul searching is important. And then it's really important, I think, as you're looking at homes to like do kind of a gut check of like, how am I feeling? Like, what is actually happening to me when I look at homes on Zillow? You know, is it like every time I see an A-frame, my heart starts to like leap out of my chest? Then like, maybe you want to wait for an A-frame. Maybe you can get an A-frame in a different county than you were looking at initially. I don't know, you know? And, you know, and then I think that like, if this happens even more when you start to see homes in person. And that's where I think that like, that people's priorities can start to shift. So I don't know, is there anybody else like any like Billy or Hillary, never did that with our team members, but is there anybody else who wants to say anything here about like, what do you guys do? Like when people are, or do you see buyers' priorities changing when you're showing homes?
Yeah,
think-
I do.
How does that, Jess, how do you help people set their priorities or like
So
refine them maybe?
I really just kind of listen and read in between the lines about what they like to do when they're here. And then it kind of becomes apparent to me, like if they like to cook or, if they need to commute back and forth to the city. I'm like, okay, so we need a place that has a farmer's market within 15 minutes and also a train station, that sort of thing. But I find that a lot of people that I work with in my area are really interested in nature, the outdoors, and we've got plenty of that over here.
Well, and that's like, and again, I'm going to like probably say this in every Zoom. The house is only so important. Like as realtors, we love houses, but you can get the ugliest house up here, like literally the ugliest house with all the neighbors and all the noise, and you're still going to be 15 minutes from hiking and farmers markets and whatever, like pretty much wherever you land here.
It's important to understand that your house can change. You can change your house. You can do projects and things over the years and over time to like really make it what you want it to be. And it doesn't have to be forever,
And you can also have a starter home. And this is the thing, is like the priority is to be like, which priorities am I okay with delaying? Which priorities am I okay with delaying? It's like my first apartment that I bought was like 400 square feet on a 5th floor walk up. I didn't want to walk up 5 flights of fucking stairs, pardon my language. I didn't want to, I didn't want that. But that's what I got because that's what I could afford. Right. And then the places I lived steadily got better as I saved money, as my real estate appreciated and I could sell it and get something else. So, and that's the thing, like Monica, and again, like, I don't think I'm saying anything too personal here, but like you went into that house, like I'm going to be here for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then I'll hopefully keep it as a rental and buy something else.
That's the plan. Not my dream home, but it's a great home. It's less than I was paying in rent. It's mine. I get to do what I want with it. I get to do all the projects that, I didn't even think of when I bought the house. And I get to get appreciation. So, instead of paying someone else's mortgage, I feel pretty good about my compromises. I have a neighbor 10 feet away from my house, but like, that's cool. Right. My next house, I might not have, the neighbor so close and might not be on a busier road. And, I'll probably have 2 bathrooms. Those were compromises.
Well, also like I only have 1 bathroom here. You know what I mean? Like we eventually built the second building that but I'm not going outside to, to use the bathroom. So we only have 1 bathroom here. We absolutely have neighbors right across the street, right on the side. You just don't see that in the pictures I post.
Yeah.
Or like that we took for Airbnb. And the neighbors aren't like the way the house is facing. They don't bother me so much, and so that's like, but this again is the thing where a lot of people will kind of roll up and be like, I don't know, like the pictures of our house, which has this big ass living room, literally like the pictures on the MLS made it look like, because it does on the side, it kind of looks like a mobile home. Sort of does. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like, or just like a really basic ranch. Like you would never know that it steps down and it has this big thing. And that's what was on the MLS. And that was why this cost $250 and I was able to get it. It was a different market also, but I don't know. Does anybody have any questions while we're talking about this stuff? Or again, like anybody on the team have anything else to add? I know this probably sounds esoteric, but it's like, it's not, it's really like your house is so important for, and we really recognize that, like financially, like for how it represents you as a person to the outside world, for the memories you're going to make there, for the time you're going to spend there alone, for the projects you take on or don't take on. Like it's really, it's this big deal. Yeah. And it's also not a big deal nowhere,
And the time you spend now thinking about these things, it's going to make the entire process so much easier, quicker, clearer, and it'll give whoever you're communicating with, whether it's your partner or your real estate agent, like a much better sense of what your priorities are. And again, why are those your priorities? And I think like from the agent perspective, if you're telling me what your priorities are and why, and I am able to find a house or houses that fit all of those priorities, and you're still like, something's missing. It's like, all right, something's not aligning, right? Like one of your priorities you need to sit with and re-clarify, because if those were your priorities and we found them all and it's still not right, one of those, something's off, right? So that's where it comes back to that like existential kind of, practice. But
well, and honest to God, like I mean, not for nothing, like you should be able to find a house with any of the agents on our team the first time you go out. You should be able to buy one of those houses, because we are going to like show you, like they only are going to show you things that are as close to fitting your priorities with your budget and timeline and everything else as exists.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure to do it the first time, but like often, like
if it doesn't happen that first time, again, it's like, well, let's sit down and readjust, right? So
yeah.
As an example, I had clients that were like, hey, we think we really want to be walkable, right? We want to be in a town, we want to be in a city. We looked at things in Cornwall and Hudson and, a lot of great places, and we saw some great houses. But that first trip, they were like, wow, we hadn't been to these areas in 2 or 3 years, and things have changed. And we are kind of assessing what we thought we wanted, because we realized that this is a second home. We don't want to feel like we're in Brooklyn. So then they started looking in extremely rural areas, total 180, right? But sometimes it will take like a day of like immersing yourself in that to figure it out, which is fair.
Well, and then you maybe like, you go to the total rural area and you're like, well, that may be a little far. And then you're like, okay, great, we're going to look in the middle. So yeah, like it basically is like, if your priorities are totally clear, you should be able to find a house on the first day. If they're not, you may never find a house, but we can help you clarify it. You can clarify it. That's the thing. It's like, and it's, I don't know, that's part of the fun. I think that's part of the fun process is what Jess said. I love what Jess said about reading between the lines, because that's what Monica and I were talking about earlier too, is that like, I feel like our job so much as agents is like listening for things and being, and then reminding people of them and being like, you said you wanted to host like the big family holidays every year, and this living room's only like 4 feet wide and has, low ceilings, and you can only have like a dinner table for 2. I'm getting a vibe like it's not going to work. Because it can be so easy to get, it can be easy to get charmed by certain things that may not end up being a priority. So Alona and Peter asked, what areas allow Airbnb near Stonebridge? And that is a good question, because allow is a complicated.
Yeah,
Is a
a lot
complicated
of regulations, not necessarily like full restrictions,
yeah.
but there's no guarantee. You can apply for permits in a lot of the areas, but there are caps in some of the areas on how many permits they're giving out. They're going to require passing inspections from the building departments. So that's like a longer conversation, because there are a lot of areas around there that have all different regulations. There, are things shifting still. So it's always, an of the minute conversation to an extent. Like what we tell you today, give us 4 weeks, it could shift.
Yeah.
But
we really try and stay on top of that though. We try and stay on top of like what the current regulations are, and also what is just like brewing, when are towns starting to talk about it? And a lot of the towns around there, Hurley's very difficult to Airbnb. Kingston is very difficult. Rochester, where I am, Bronx and Accord has permits, a limited number, but so far that's been like okay to get them. I think Stonebridge does. Stonebridge allows Airbnb too,
as
but
far as I know, yep.
Yeah, it's specific requirements, and often and this is where knowing, like you said, not even just up to the minute, but knowing exactly how often you want to Airbnb. The restrictions tend to be about either that it's your primary home and you're renting out part of it. That's one of the ones that sometimes comes up, or you're on the same property. So it could be like a main house and a guest house or an accessory apartment. A lot of places are adopting a limit on the days, like 180 days is the maximum number that you can rent it.
Requirement for there to be a property manager within X distance or minutes of the house available at all times.
We are also going to start, I think we're going to start working with vacation rentals, like seasonal rentals, because that is one way. I mean, first of all, there's so much demand for it. Like we get all these people asking like, do you guys have any summer season rentals? Do you have any winter seasonal rentals? And it's like, no, nobody, like people just aren't doing that up here because everybody moved to Airbnb. So I think that with those regulations, doing a rental over 30 days gets you out of you're out of the short-term rental regulations. So doing a 3-month rental, you could still earn that kind of, money that is for a furnished place that's, nice. Actually, it doesn't even have to be nice. I mean, it could just be for 3 months, it could be priced accordingly. I think that could be possible. So if we do our renovations, are you aware of any regulations about adding a fireplace if a house doesn't have one? Nope. I've never heard of any regulations about that. Literally never. I will also say that, again, like this is going to sound weird, but like everybody has wood stoves here. Like even if there's a fireplace, it's like usually a wood stove insert. It is so much more efficient. It like heats the house. It's so much safer. You can just like close it and go to bed. So, and that is like really easy. Like you just plop it and like get the, what do you call it? Like stovepipey thing up.
Flue,
Yeah. Flue.
right?
Like, I don't know. Sounds like a boat term, but yeah, I know there is something called a flue in a fireplace. F-L-U-E. See, I haven't know it's spelled. It's very late. I told you, 8:48 is like 4:30 in the morning upstate time.
I think to also just kind of piggyback on what we were talking about before the Airbnb question, when we're trying to help clients look for things or clients are sending us things, right? Like our job, and I think one of our priorities as your agent is to be what I like to call, or the team likes to call, like a red flag radar, right? So we're going to tell any of our clients all of the things that we see as potential issues for them and all of the reasons why they shouldn't buy the home. Not what you'd expect from an agent. You're expecting them to try to like sell you on something, right? I don't think anyone believes that we're going to be able to sell you a home. Like a home is something you're going to buy if you love, and you get that feeling back to kind of the beginning of our conversation that you're looking for, because it does come down to that. Like, is this house giving you the feeling that you're looking for? And maybe that feeling is coming from the kitchen or the setting or the style or the location. All of those things can influence it, but we're really going to do the opposite, counterintuitive, and tell you everything wrong with the house. And if you're like, nope, that's fine. Like that's the most ideal situation, right? Because it's like, hey, here's all the reasons why somebody might not want it. And if those are all things you're comfortable with, like that's a really good sign.
Well, and I think that, and then the other thing that we do, which is interesting, is be like a possibilities radar. So it's like, here are the things that like don't fit with what you've told me you want. But like when somebody walks to home and they're like, whoa, this is gross. It's like, well, just, hang on a second. Like that maybe the furniture is weird in the home or it smells a little musty or something. It's like, okay, we have visions, like picture it with the different furniture, picture it painted white, picture it like, that's where like, we're really used to seeing beyond those things. And you cannot imagine how much of a difference the furniture makes. And you are going to have your own furniture that you pick, right? I mean, like, I'm pretty sure you're not buying the furniture if it's furniture you hate, even if it's for sale. If a home is beautifully staged, like we know this, it will sell at a higher price, period.
White paint.
So you know what you should look for if you want to bargain, look for the houses with the like red paint everywhere and the ugly furniture. That's what you actually should be saying. And that's the kind of stuff that the agents on the team are really trained to look for, to be like, ooh, that'd be cool.
The listings with terrible photos, the listings
with terrible photos.
with like a finger in front of the camera and the agent's reflection in the bathroom mirror. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so I got a secret question, direct message, but I'll answer it publicly anyways, because it's not private. I just asked, do you see more neighborhood amenities coming to the town of Rochester area? Thank you for answering this question. By answering, I mean asking. because it brings up a super good point, which is that like the first time I drove to Kerhonkson, I had been here once before we bought this house. And someone told me Kerhonkson's pretty. And so we drove to Kerhonkson on the map. And I was like, oh, there's 2 gas stations. There's a Dollar General, there's like a liquor store, and that is it. I was like, what are people talking about? I literally don't understand. So now in the town of Kerhonkson, there's basically still just that. Plus there's also a cute cafe called Mill and Main. But it's still basically just that, the diner, which I love. But around us, but you can't see easily driving to a center of town is Ravenwood, which is like gorgeous farm stand, cafe, bakery place. There's Innis, which is a members club and restaurant with a pool and blah, 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 and Westwind Orchard and Arrowwood Farms and Minnewaska and Mohonk. So these are all amenities. And this is also what we do a lot of. So when I was looking, and this is where, again, like, I think that it's hard to move from a city perspective, or for me, I'd always lived in urban areas in my adult life, to like being like, you're not going to drive by and see things in a lot of places. Like there's Kingston and Beacon and Newburgh and Hudson, and like some places where you could drive by a neighborhood and you're going to see some stuff. And then there are a lot of towns, Livingston Manor. I mean, there's a lot of towns, Narrowsburg. There are a lot of places where it's just, stuff is just dotted all around. And so thinking about 20 minutes as the drive that's going to feel close to you when you live here, like 15 to 20 minutes is going to feel like pretty close, like kind of, like that's your easy errand. And up to an hour is where you'll probably go for like a nice dinner or a special hike, or like I don't know, friends having a barbecue or something. You're going to drive that. And it's not going to be a big deal because it's totally gorgeous here and there's never any traffic.
And quick shameless plug that if people are curious about some really awesome places in the areas that we cover, we have a map where the entire team has compiled all of their favorite places, restaurants, shops, just like random spots that you guys can check out on our website.
Yeah, that's in the community section of our website. And I should also mention that the app, we have an app also called Upstate Curious, where you can download the app. There's around 6,000 members now. It's people who live all over the place up here. And it's kind of like a big forum. So people are asking questions like, I need a roofer for my house in Amenia, or I want to start a parents group in Kingston. But people also ask like, hey, I'm moving upstate. Like, where should I look? This is kind of the vibe I'm looking for. Because one thing we're not allowed to do, and I should mention this is like a closing thing even, as realtors, like if you ask us to help you find a place with a lot of diversity, or like anything, there's a lot of things around that relate to fair housing that we cannot talk about. Like we just legally cannot talk about it. And you can picture what you think is a good question phrased in the opposite way, and then you'll understand why we can't talk about it. When you're like, it's like, no, what if somebody said I want a town with no diversity? No bueno. So
all of that information is available on the internet. Feel free to Google the demographics of specific areas.
And then you can ask we've seen tons of questions on our app that are like, we are a, biracial queer couple, like where should we go? Like, what are some towns that are like, we're going to feel welcome? Great. People can all answer that to each other. That is one of the reasons we developed that resource. And it is different, like, for people who've lived in a city that has how to put this, but like, New York City is like, obviously like very heavily Democrat. It can be weird to like come upstate and see like signs of other political parties, and upstate is, a lot of the counties we're in, it's about half and half. And it doesn't mean that like, and I've seen people absolutely not buy a house because there was like a Trump sign or something 2 houses down. It's like some of your neighbors are going to have different political views than you, period, no matter where you are. And you're going to be able to find, I think, cool people who are like-minded, who you really vibe with anywhere you are.
Agreed.
Pretty much. Like there might be fewer people in some areas, more people in another area, more access to other towns, but like there is such a hodgepodge of people up here. There have been artists and creatives up here since the 19th century. This is not, this is not us moving up here. This is people here forever. So, does anyone have any other questions or
comments?
comments? I think that, as just the last thought, they talk about like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good or great. Either way. We definitely saw people go through like the entire COVID period, start looking before COVID and be like, but I want this and this, and I can't find it. And we go out and then they wait a little bit and then they go out again. And during that time period, the prices went up so much that their criteria, like they had to completely change their criteria to get like by not finding something at the time that was good enough, they ended up having to like totally change their priorities.
They might have previously been able to find 90% of what they were looking for, and now they can really only find 50, right? Like
exactly. And even if things are going up only 4%, 5% a year now, there is a specific category of home, and we were talking about this home, pretty much like they're just like a few, like 4 or 5 unicorns a week, maybe. It's probably 4 or 5 a week across our entire 8 counties that are going to get like 1 million offers, and 1 million people are going to be there, and it's going to be just as competitive as it would have been in 2021. That's just true, because it's gonna hit the priorities for a lot of people. And then there's a bunch of houses that are awesome that may be like a little bit less frantic. Then there are awesome or could be awesome houses that no one's really looking at. And there are some really good opportunities for buyers right now. But if you wait, like it's not, I don't know, things are not going to get like significantly cheaper. Nobody is predicting that. They're really not. So I guess that's it. So we've seen enough people go through this and change their priorities and end up with places that they love and where they're happy, where they're able to do all the things they want to do. They're able to enjoy nature and bring their friends and family up and maybe make some money on the side doing Airbnb. And so it's possible for everybody really at every price range. I mean, not like, $60,000. Like that would be hard for us to find you a house, but you just have to set your expectations and the priorities, for your budget, just have to be reasonable. That's it.
Keep
we can help. Any last words, Monica, Billy, Hillary, Jess?
I just feel like the main theme is like you said, your quote before, just like let go of perfect, because you might prevent yourself from finding awesome, right? Or like something that ends up being yours. You might not find the thing that feels that way day one, but you can create that.
And just to jump on that, I think if you understand that it's going to be compromises necessary, like we said, even at every budget, but when you focus on the priorities and start to really hone in on them, that's what helps you to sort of, find the opportunities and see what's most important. And you get the thing that matters most, hopefully.
That's it. That is like, I think we literally, like we see both cases so often. Like the people who are doing it and the people who really struggle with it and don't end up getting something, or get so like flustered looking for one thing that it misses the bigger picture kind of,
Yeah.
It's a lot of, it's a lot of psychology here in real estate. So thank you all for being with us. And if you have any questions, you know where we live on Instagram at Upstate Curious. Like I said, you can feel free to fill out the buyer questionnaire if you're interested in buying at any point in your process. As early as possible is honestly best. We can recommend lenders and all those things. So, and we had a whole conversation today with a lender yesterday about how actually you might have more room in your budget looking at different products that they have. So there's even the price when you think you can't change it. Sometimes the finance folks can find some interesting things. So thanks for being here, and hopefully see you soon.
Bye.
Bye everyone.